It was getting worse. One look under her dress revealed the terrifying secret. Lieutenant Dorian Kale stared out the viewport of the UES horizon, watching stars streak by as the reconnaissance vessel cut through the darkness of deep space. His reflection showed the weariness that 6 months of border patrol had etched into his features. The sharp jawline more pronounced, dark eyes deeper set, and his once military-precise haircut growing slightly unkempt. "Lieutenant, the new medical specialist has arrived," announced Ensign Torres, breaking his contemplation. "Captain wants you to handle the orientation." Dorian suppressed a sigh. The Galactic Alliance's insistence on integrating non-human specialists into human crews was politically necessary, but operationally challenging. "Where is our new arrival?" "Decontamination chamber. Standard protocols." The lieutenant made his way through the ship's sterile corridors to the medical bay. Through the transparent barrier of the decontamination chamber stood a slender figure draped in layers of iridescent fabric that shimmered like oil on water. Only the face remained uncovered. Distinctly feminine features with a delicate structure, skin the color of twilight sky and eyes like polished silver. "I am Lieutenant Dorian Kale, Tactical Officer of the Horizon," he introduced himself through the intercom. The figure lowered her head slightly. "I am Healer Nicera of House Valen, third daughter of the Luminary Council." Her voice carried a melodic quality, each word precisely enunciated. "I have been assigned as medical specialist to your vessel." When the decontamination cycle completed, Nicera stepped forward, her movements graceful despite the heavy robes. Dorian noticed how she kept her hands concealed within wide sleeves. "The Zetherians are renowned healers," he said, attempting to bridge the awkward silence as they walked. "We've had our share of close calls recently. Your skills will be valuable." "I serve where needed," she replied simply. Over the following weeks, Healer Nicera proved her worth repeatedly. The Horizon patrolled disputed territories where skirmishes with rebel factions left crew members with injuries beyond conventional medicine. Nicera's abilities were unlike anything Dorian had witnessed. Her hands would hover above wounds, emitting a soft blue luminescence that knitted flesh and bone with remarkable speed. Yet for all her integration into ship operations, she remained an enigma. She took meals alone, spoke only when necessary, and maintained a physical distance from the crew. The layers of robes never diminished, even in the ship's sometimes uncomfortable heat. "She's hiding something," Security Chief Wayland insisted during a private briefing. "Everyone has secrets," Dorian countered. "Her healing has saved 8 lives already. I'm just saying those Zetherians have evolutionary adaptations we don't fully understand." "The Alliance protocols are being followed," Dorian interrupted. She passed all screenings. Later that cycle, an emergency called Dorian to the medical bay. A technician had suffered severe radiation burns while repairing the ship's coolant system. He arrived to find Nicera working feverishly over the unconscious man, her hands glowing with that distinctive blue light. For the first time, Dorian noticed something concerning. Faint lines of the same blue light seemed to trace up from her wrists, visible briefly when her sleeves fell back. More troubling was the sheen of exhaustion on her face, small tremors running through her arms as she completed the healing. When the technician stabilized, she stepped back, nearly stumbling. "Healer?" Dorian moved quickly to her side, instinctively reaching for her arm. She recoiled sharply. "Do not touch me directly." The words came out harsher than anything he'd heard from her. Seeing his expression, she softened. "Forgive me. My energy is depleted after difficult healings. You should rest," he suggested. "Yes." She gathered her robes tightly. "Lieutenant Kale, the border patrol tomorrow. I would like to join the landing party." "That's not necessary. The planet's atmosphere is unstable. I believe my skills may be required." Something in her silver eyes conveyed urgency beyond her words. Against his better judgment, Dorian approved her request. That night, as he reviewed mission parameters, he couldn't shake the image of those glowing lines beneath her skin, or the inexplicable concern that had taken root in his chest. What he didn't yet understand was that tomorrow's mission would change everything between them and reveal a secret more beautiful and terrifying than he could imagine. The descent to Epsilon Tauri IV was treacherous. Atmospheric storms battered the shuttle, lightning crackling across the viewports as Dorian fought the controls. Behind him, the 4-person team braced against the turbulence, Sergeant Voss checking weapons, Science Officer Lynn securing equipment and Nicera sitting unnaturally still, her robes pulled tight despite the cabin's rising temperature. Atmospheric readings show high levels of ionized particles, Lynn reported. Similar composition to what we encountered on Proxima b. Dorian nodded. The mining facility reported artifacts before communications went dark. We locate survivors, gather intel, and extract. No unnecessary risks. Their landing was rough but controlled. As they disembarked into swirling mists, the abandoned mining complex loomed ahead, a skeleton of metal and composite materials being slowly reclaimed by the planet's aggressive vegetation. Life signs scattered throughout the main structure, Voss reported, studying his scanner. Faint, possibly in stasis. Dorian noticed Nicera staring at her own hands, the fabric of her gloves stretched over trembling fingers. Healer, stay close to Lynn. Her silver eyes met his. I am adequate, Lieutenant. The mining facility's interior was a maze of darkened corridors and emergency lighting. They discovered the first survivor in a makeshift medical ward, a woman barely conscious, skin marked with branching patterns like lightning strikes. Radiation poisoning? Lynn suggested, scanning the patient. Nicera shook her head. Energy saturation. Their bodies cannot process it. She knelt beside the woman, hands hovering above the afflicted areas. The familiar blue glow emanated from her palms. But Dorian saw something alarming. The same patterns appearing on Nicera's wrists, pulsing in sync with her healing efforts. They progressed deeper into the facility, finding and treating survivors as they went. With each healing, Nicera's movements grew more labored, her breathing shallow. Dorian stayed close, watching with increasing concern as the blue patterns crept higher up her arms beneath her robes. In the central laboratory, they discovered the source, a crystalline formation pulsing with energy, surrounded by research equipment. They were experimenting with it, Lynn said, examining the scientists' logs. A new energy source, but the radiation it emits alters organic matter at the cellular level. A sudden explosion rocked the facility. Reactor breach, Voss shouted through the comms. We have 15 minutes before critical failure. Dorian organized the evacuation, directing the rescued miners toward the shuttle. As they herded the last group through collapsing corridors, a secondary explosion sent debris cascading down. Dorian shoved 2 miners forward just as the ceiling collapsed, cutting him off from the group. Lieutenant, Lynn's voice crackled through his comms. Get to the shuttle, he ordered, coughing through the dust. I'll find another way around. A soft blue glow illuminated the darkness beside him. Nicera had remained behind. You should have evacuated, he said. I would not leave you, she replied simply. They navigated the rapidly deteriorating structure, racing against time as the facility's systems failed around them. Crossing a damaged catwalk, Nicera suddenly stumbled, the glow from her hands flickering like a dying light. Nicera. Dorian caught her as she collapsed. Her robes fell open at the neck, revealing what she'd been hiding. Luminous blue veins spread across her chest and throat, pulsing with the same energy they'd seen in the crystal. Her skin, naturally blue, now had an unnatural translucence, the network of light visible beneath. Don't look, she whispered, trying weakly to cover herself. Please. Instead of recoiling, Dorian gently secured her robes and lifted her into his arms. Hold on to me. With the facility crumbling around them, he carried her through smoke and flame, finding an emergency airlock that led to an exterior platform. The shuttle hovered nearby, Voss at the controls extending the boarding ramp. Inside the safety of the shuttle, as they ascended through the planet's turbulent atmosphere, Dorian cradled Nicera against him. The blue light beneath her skin flickered dangerously. How long? He asked softly. How long have you been affected? Her silver eyes met his. Since my first deep healing aboard your ship. The energy, it resonates with something in my biology. Each time I heal, it grows stronger. Why didn't you tell me? My people do not burden others with our suffering. Her voice weakened. Among the Zetherians, this condition is shameful. A healer who cannot control the energies. Dorian's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining despite her weak protest. We'll face it together, he promised, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. As her light flickered against his skin, he realized it wasn't just duty driving him anymore. It was something deeper, something he wasn't ready to name. The blue glow spread to his fingertips where they touched, but instead of fear, he felt only a profound connection. as if some essential part of her was reaching out to him across the vast differences between their worlds. The Horizon's medical bay had been converted into a containment unit. Behind transparent barriers, Nicera lay on a diagnostic bed, monitoring equipment recording the pulses of energy that now visibly coursed through her body. Dorian stood outside watching as Dr. Reyes examined the readings. "I've never seen anything like it," Reyes admitted. "It's as if the energy from those crystals has bonded with her cellular structure." "It's not killing her, it's changing her." Captain Ashford crossed her arms. "Lieutenant, I need to inform Alliance Command." "With respect, Captain, you know what they'll do," Dorian argued. "They'll quarantine her, experiment on her. She's not a lab specimen, she's our crew." "She's also potentially carrying an unknown contagion," Ashford countered. "You were exposed during the evacuation." "I'm fine, look." Dorian held up his hands, showing the faint blue tracery that had appeared after contact with Nicera. "It's dormant in me. Maybe that's the key." After heated debate, Ashford agreed to a compromise, 72 hours to find answers before reporting to command. Dorian immediately set to work with Nicera and Dr. Reyes, analyzing both their biological responses to the energy. During their research, Dorian spent hours beside Nicera's containment unit. They talked more in those 3 days than they had in months of service together. He learned of her world, a planet of crystalline cities and healing traditions dating back millennia. She spoke of her childhood, her training, her fears. "In our mythology," she explained, her voice stronger now that she no longer hid her condition, "there are stories of light seekers, healers whose bodies became vessels for pure energy. They were either transcendent beings or cautionary tales, depending on who tells the story." "And which do you believe it to be?" Dorian asked. Her silver eyes studied him thoughtfully. "I once feared it was a curse, now I'm not certain." On the second night, when the ship's lighting dimmed for sleep cycle, Dorian remained at his monitoring station. He noticed Nicera watching him, her containment unit glowing softly from the light of her veins. "You should rest, Lieutenant," she said. "Dorian," he corrected. "After everything, I think you can use my name." A smile transformed her face. "Dorian." Something shifted between them in that moment. Professional distance giving way to genuine connection. When she extended her hand against the transparent barrier, he placed his own against it from the other side. The blue light in her veins pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While reviewing historical data from Zetherian archives, Lynn discovered references to an ancient temple on Epsilon Tauri III, the moon they were currently orbiting. Archaeological records mentioned healing energies and transformation rituals. The temple was built on a natural deposit of the same crystals we found at the mining facility, Lynn explained. "According to these records, your ancestors used it for some kind of evolutionary catalyst." Nicera's eyes widened. "The ascension chambers. They're not myths." With time running out before Ashford's deadline, Dorian proposed a mission to the moon's surface. Against medical advice, Nicera insisted on accompanying them. "The energy responds to me," she argued. "If answers exist in that temple, I need to be there." The landing party consisted of just 3, Dorian, Nicera, and Lynn. They descended to the moon's forested surface as dawn broke over the horizon, casting the ancient temple in golden light. Constructed of stone and crystal, the structure rose from the jungle like a natural formation, its surfaces etched with symbols similar to those glowing beneath Nicera's skin. As they approached the entrance, Nicera swayed suddenly, reaching for Dorian's arm to steady herself. "The energy is stronger here," she whispered. "It's calling to me." Inside, they discovered a vast chamber dominated by a pool of luminescent liquid, the same blue as the light in Nicera's veins. Ancient machinery surrounded it, dormant but seemingly intact. Lynn examined the control panels. "It appears to be some kind of stabilization chamber. The inscriptions speak of joining the divided and binding 2 essences into harmony." Nicera translated more of the text, her expression growing troubled. "It says the process requires an anchor, another living being whose energy can stabilize the transformation." Her silver eyes turned to Dorian. "Someone willing to share the burden." Before they could discuss further, their comms crackled with an urgent message from the horizon. "Unidentified vessel approaching," came Ashford's voice. "Hostile signatures." "They're scanning the moon's surface." They're looking for the energy source, Lynn realized. For Nicera, Dorian made a swift decision. Lynn returned to the shuttle. Prepare for emergency extraction. Nicera and I will activate the chamber. After Lynn departed, Dorian turned to Nicera. In the blue glow of the ancient chamber, her face showed both fear and hope. The energy beneath her skin pulsed more rapidly now, responding to the chamber's presence. Are you certain? She asked. The texts speak of permanent connection, your life bound to mine. Dorian stepped closer, finally giving voice to what had been growing between them since he'd carried her from the collapsing facility. I already feel connected to you, Nicera. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. As explosions sounded in the distance, signaling the arrival of the hostile forces, Dorian took Nicera's glowing hands in his. The blue light spread between them like water finding its level. No longer just hers, no longer just his, but something shared and transformed. In that moment of perfect understanding, they stepped toward the ancient pool, their future uncertain but their path clear. Whatever transformation awaited, they would embrace it as one. The temple trembled as distant explosions grew closer. Through the ancient stone walls, Dorian could hear the whine of energy weapons and the crash of falling trees as the hostile forces cut their way through the jungle. We need to hurry, he urged, studying the activation mechanism Lynn had partially decoded before departing. Nicera stood at the edge of the luminescent pool, her robes discarded to reveal the full extent of her condition. The network of blue light had spread across her entire body, pulsing in increasingly erratic patterns. Where it reached her face, it created delicate, luminous traceries that framed her silver eyes. The texts speak of symbiosis, she explained, translating the final inscriptions. One to channel, one to ground. The energy must flow between two beings in perfect balance. A particularly violent explosion rocked the temple, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. Dorian's comm unit crackled to life with Lynn's voice. Lieutenant, 5 hostiles approaching your position. They're carrying energy detection equipment. Dorian made a swift assessment of their options. Who are they? Energy signatures match the Vex Consortium, Lynn reported. Black market technology dealers. Understanding dawned on Dorian. The Vex were notorious for weaponizing alien biology. A being like Nicera, capable of channeling and transferring energy, would be invaluable to them. A living power source to be exploited until nothing remained. We're activating the chamber now, Dorian decided. Tell Captain Ashford to prepare for emergency extraction once we're finished. He turned to find Nicera already standing waist-deep in the glowing pool, her expression serene despite the danger. The liquid around her churned and brightened, responding to her presence. Dorian, she called softly, extending her hand. It needs both of us. He removed his tactical gear and stepped into the pool beside her. The luminescent liquid felt neither hot nor cold, but tingled against his skin like static electricity. As he took her offered hand, the sensation intensified, energy flowing between them in visible currents. The stabilization requires complete connection, Nicera whispered. Physical and spiritual joining, their eyes met in understanding. Slowly, deliberately, Dorian drew her closer until their bodies pressed together in the glowing liquid. The blue light from her veins began to spread to his skin wherever they touched, across his chest, along his arms, tracing patterns that mirrored hers. When their lips finally met, the connection burst into something transcendent. Dorian felt her consciousness brush against his, memories, feelings, sensations not his own flooding through him. He saw her childhood on a crystal world, felt her years of healer training, experienced her first frightening awareness of the energy growing within her. In turn, she received his memories, a childhood among the stars as a military family moved from post to post, the loneliness of command, the moment he first saw her step from the decontamination chamber, and felt something inexplicable shift inside him. The chamber's ancient machinery hummed to life around them, responding to their union. Crystal formations in the walls began to glow with the same blue light, creating a resonance pattern that stabilized the energy flowing between them. Through their joined consciousness, Dorian understood what was happening. The energy wasn't an infection or a disease. It was an evolutionary adaptation her species had once embraced but later feared and abandoned. The chamber wasn't curing her. It was completing a transformation that had begun naturally. The temple doors shattered inward. Through the haze of their joining, Dorian was dimly aware of armed figures entering the chamber, weapons raised. Step away from the alien, commanded a harsh voice. That specimen is now property of the Vex Consortium. The intruders approached the pool cautiously, energy containment devices ready. One fired a warning shot that sizzled into the ancient stone beside them. In that moment of threat, Dorian made his sacrifice. Through their connection, he sent Nicera a wordless message of intent, then broke their physical contact, lunging from the pool toward the intruders. "Run!" he shouted to Nicera, drawing his sidearm as he placed himself between her and the Vex operatives. The first shot struck him squarely in the chest, the impact driving him back toward the pool. As he fell, time seemed to slow. He saw Nicera's face transform with horror and determination. Instead of fleeing, she reached for him, her glowing hands extending to catch his falling body. When they connected again, something unprecedented occurred. The energy that had begun to stabilize between them suddenly amplified. Every wound the weapons had torn in Dorian's body filled with blue light. The pool itself seemed to rise around them, creating a protective barrier of pure energy. Through their renewed connection, Dorian heard Nicera's voice in his mind. This was always meant for two. Not just connection, protection. The energy surged outward in a controlled shockwave, incapacitating the intruders without killing them. As they collapsed unconscious to the temple floor, the ancient machinery reached a crescendo of activity, completing what they had begun. Cradled in Nicera's arms, his body suffused with the same light that filled hers, Dorian understood that his sacrifice hadn't been death. It had been transformation. What he had offered was his humanity, his separate existence. What he had gained was something far greater. As the light enveloped them completely, Dorian felt no fear, only the certainty that whatever they became together would be more than either could have been alone. Part 5. Transformation. The extraction team from the horizon found them unconscious but alive at the center of the ancient chamber. The Vex operatives lay scattered around the perimeter, stunned but unharmed. The luminescent pool had receded into the temple floor, leaving only a dry, intricate pattern of crystalline formations. In the horizon's medical bay, Captain Ashford stared through the observation window at her two crew members. "Report, Doctor." Dr. Reyes shook her head in bewilderment. "I've never seen anything like it. The energy patterns have stabilized in both of them, but they're changed." On separate diagnostic beds, Dorian and Nicera lay in perfect stillness, a faint blue luminescence visible beneath their skin. Where Dorian's wounds had been, there were now intricate patterns like those on the temple floor. Monitoring equipment showed their heartbeats synchronized, brainwaves matching exactly despite their unconscious state. "Are they still themselves?" Ashford asked. "I believe so," Reyes replied. "But they're also something more now." 3 days passed before either showed signs of waking. Nicera's eyes opened first, silver irises now threaded with filaments of blue. She immediately turned to Dorian, who awakened moments later as if responding to an unheard call. When Ashford entered the quarantine area in a protective suit, she found them sitting across from each other, hands joined, communicating without words. "Lieutenant Kale," she addressed him formally. "Report." Dorian looked up, his dark eyes now bearing the same luminous threads as Nicera's. "Captain, the mission was successful." "Define successful," Ashford demanded. "You were shot multiple times. You should be dead. Instead, you're glowing like a deep space beacon, and our sensors indicate you're emitting energy signatures unlike anything in our database." Nicera spoke, her voice carrying a new resonance. The transformation the chamber initiated has created a symbiotic bond. What flows through me now flows through him, and what was unstable alone is balanced between us. "Can you control it?" Ashford asked, the practical military commander asserting herself. In answer, Dorian extended his hand. A controlled sphere of blue energy formed above his palm, then dissipated harmlessly. "We have perfect control, Captain. The energy responds to our will, together or separately." After extensive testing confirmed they posed no threat to the ship or crew, Dorian and Nicera were gradually reintegrated into ship operations. Their capabilities had expanded far beyond Nicera's original healing abilities. Together, they could manipulate energy in ways that defied conventional physics, repairing damaged systems with a touch, sensing anomalies at distances beyond scanner range, creating protective fields around away teams. But the most profound change remained private between them, the permanent connection that transcended physical boundaries. Even separated by the length of the ship, each felt the other's presence, thoughts, and emotions flowing between them like water finding its level. One evening, off-duty in Dorian's quarters, they stood at the viewport watching stars streak by. Their reflections showed the visible signs of their transformation, the subtle glow beneath their skin, the luminous threads in their eyes. Nisera's naturally blue complexion had deepened to a richer hue, while Dorian's human appearance now carried an otherworldly quality. "Do you regret it?" Nisera asked softly, though she already knew his answer through their bond. "Sacrificing your humanity?" Dorian turned to her, taking her hands in his. The energy between them pulsed in harmony. "I didn't sacrifice my humanity, I expanded it." His fingers traced the luminous patterns along her cheek. "What is humanity but the capacity to connect, to grow, to transform through love?" "The Vex will come again," she reminded him. "Others too, when word spreads of what we've become. Let them come." His confidence wasn't bravado but certainty. What they shared had proven stronger than weapons, stronger than fear. Their lips met in a kiss that sent cascades of light flowing beneath their skin. In that moment of perfect union, the boundaries between them dissolved completely. No longer lieutenant and healer, human and alien, but something new forged from both. 6 months later, the horizon approached Earth's orbital station. Captain Ashford stood on the bridge, Dorian and Nisera flanking her as the Alliance Admiralty appeared on the viewscreen. "Your report mentions evolutionary adaptations and symbiotic transformation," said Admiral Chen skeptically. "Alliance protocols dictate immediate quarantine for unknown biological alterations." Ashford straightened. "With respect, Admiral, Lieutenant Kale and Healer Nisera have proven invaluable to this ship's mission. During the Cassini Nebula crisis, their abilities saved not only this crew, but 3 civilian transports. Regulations exist for a reason, Captain," perhaps Ashford conceded. "Some regulations need to evolve as well." After the transmission ended, she turned to her transformed crew members. "The Alliance fears what it doesn't understand. They'll want to study you, possibly separate you." "They can try," Dorian said simply. Later, as the Horizon prepared for docking procedures, Dorian and Nisera stood in their private quarters facing whatever challenges awaited. Through their bond they shared not fear but resolve. "Whatever comes next," Nisera said, her silver blue eyes meeting his, "we face it. Together," Dorian finished, the word carrying the weight of a vow. Around them, the blue energy that had once been a curse now flowed in perfect harmony, a visible manifestation of the connection between them. Their story had begun with fear and secrecy, a lieutenant discovering an alien's terrifying secret. It had transformed into something neither could have imagined, a union that transcended species, energy that bridged worlds, and love that rewrote the very definition of what it meant to be human or Zetherian. As the Horizon docked at Earth Station, they stood side by side, their joined hands glowing with shared light. Whatever judgments waited, whatever new challenges emerged, they faced the future as neither human nor alien alone, but as living proof that the greatest power in any universe is the capacity to transform through connection. In the soft blue light that emanated from their joined hands, 2 lives from different worlds continued to burn brighter together than either could have ever burned alone. The end.